Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I will be playing the Dwarves led by Ungrim Iron Fist. And I'm going to be facing off against a Chaos opponent with his, I believe he has a Chaos Lord over here on a Manticore. So definitely a very good choice against the Dwarves. It's pretty hard to deal with that diving and the harass they have, and they also cause terror, so that's something else to be considered. So as far as my army goes, I have a front line of Longbeards with great weapons, and these guys are a pretty good choice. They have, a lot of the defensive capabilities of your traditional dwarf units with high armor and good leadership, and they also have armor piercing. So against the Warriors of Chaos, who are a very, very heavily armored faction, they are usually a solid choice. And sometimes I opt to just bring the standard Longbeards for the higher melee defense for the longer sustainability in the front line. But again, I've been experimenting with some new builds, and this one has worked pretty well. So Chaos Warriors, Longbeards in the front line with great weapons. I also have some Gyrocopters with Brimstone guns. So this is a very, very good choice in dealing with Chaos Cavalry and, even against Chosen and these Manticores and those type of things. They're pretty good. Anti-large, armor piercing. And, even if he does have a superior air force with the Dwarves, you can simply park them over your army and then use your Thunders and Iron Drakes to protect them. So that usually works out quite well for me. And then I have Ungrim here. I have a Thane here just to help out. It's just solid to have that second leadership unit just to be in the front line. And, with that potion, he can really hold a front for quite some time. And then I have a Runesmith here for the buffs across the army. I have some Hammerers in the back for additional armor piercing against the Warriors of Chaos, and they're very, very good at that 52 weapon strength and 52 melee attack. These guys hit like trucks. So then in the wings, I decided to bring Dwarf Warriors, just as these are kind of my support units, my auxiliary. So if he does have cavalry, which he does, he has Chaos Knights with lances. These guys will be pretty good at just, taking the brunt of that. And, he does have Chaos Marauders as well. So hopefully these guys will be able to tie them up and kind of just have that fodder battle there. So that's pretty much a quick rundown of my army. Of course, I have the Iron Drakes to deal with large threats, take out enemy lords, that kind of thing. So my opponent here is a front line of Chaos Marauders, so pretty good choice against the Dwarves. They are shielded, so they'll take Thunder Fire well. They'll deal with, my warriors with great weapons, pretty effectively. Just a all-around good fodder choice in my opinion. Then behind them, this is the oomph of his army. He has these Chosen with great weapons. So these guys are just absolute monsters against the Dwarves. They're just 120 armor, really high leadership, extremely high combat stats across the board. They don't hit quite as hard as Hammers, but their other stats are just absolutely amazing. So these guys, I definitely need to get Ungrim on them, and I need to really, really focus them with Thunders when I can. So he also has a Chaos Sorcerer with Lore of Fire, which is a good choice, provides additional armor piercing as well as damage, and can turn these Chaos Marauders into pretty substantial threats at the end of the day. So he has these two Chaos Lords, or let's see, a Chaos Lord and an Exalted Hero on the Manticore. So one of my favorite synergies with Chaos Leadership is to have that little goon squad there. Then, of course, in the forest here, he has some Chaos Knights with Lances. So he's just going to be cycle charging with these most likely. They don't have as good sustained combat as the version without lances, but they do have a really, really high charge bonus. So when they do get that initial engagement, if it's against one of my units that does not have that charge defense, it's going to be pretty devastating. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So right now, I just initially fly out with these Gyrocopters, and they're pretty good for feeling out your opponent and just I can kind of route around his front line and put pressure on him. And what's really nice is if he decides to pursue me with these Chaos Lord and this Manticore here, I can just simply cover them with the Thunderers. So that's a pretty nice synergy. And also against cavalry guys, these Gyrocopters are really, really strong. They're great at taking out Chaos Knights, anything like that. And if he had brought like a Giant or Chaos Spawn, anything of that nature, these guys are really, really good. So you guys will see when I get a few pot shots here in a minute, you'll see that the damage they do is it's nothing to sneeze at. So it's definitely not bad at all. So I just posture up here, and I'm mainly waiting for my opponent to come at this point. And, I do have this firing line here, which has a pretty decent slope here. So I do have line of sight on his front line. And you can see I take a little bit of a pot shot at his Lord, and it does about 200 HP damage, which isn't bad. I mean, that's pretty solid. And my opponent's Chaos Sorcerer does retaliate by casting a Fireball, which does decent damage here. But, so we traded relatively even there, though he did use Winds of Magic, so that's, a bonus for me. So right now, I do pull them over and get some decent pot shots here at the cavalry, and you can see they actually take out quite a few of those guys. So I'm not complaining, and they took, a good 10-15% of their HP just from one volley there. So that was not bad at all. I was very happy with that exchange, and here comes another volley, doing pretty good damage. So against Dwarves, they're very weak to cavalry, so anything you can do to whittle that threat down as soon as possible is definitely going to pay off for you at the end of the day. So my Chaos, not my Chaos, my opponent's Chaos forces are advancing on my front line. The Thunderers did get a decent little fire over here on these Chaos Marauders, but again, they are shielded and they are a fodder unit, so not the best use. I probably should have targeted these guys, but I think I was slightly obstructed there. So in the front line, they're going to engage with my Dwarvish units here, but this is another good engagement for my opponent because these fodder units I'm not really going to reap the armor-piercing benefit from these troops with the great weapons here against these Marauders. But regardless, I think the Marauders will get cut through fairly quickly and will allow me to get through to the Chosen. So you can see we've engaged in the front line. I did pull one of my auxiliary groups of Dwarf Warriors to tie up these guys, but unfortunately the Chosen are getting in here, and they're just a far superior unit. So it's going to be a bad day for these guys on the eastern flank here. Over here, my gyrocopters are... I was running, but I eventually just turned and fought, and I am going to be pulling my missile units here to help. He does dive, but Ungrim was actually waiting for him. And look at that. That's like 1 or 2 hits from Ungrim, and it took him down to almost half health. But thankfully for my opponent, he does have potions, so he should be okay. So right now, I'm just basically reforming my Iron Drake squad and getting my Thunderers realigned, trying to get them postured up to take some shots at my opponent's flying units and cavalry here. And you can see I form a little bit of a battle line because he was coming in to flank these guys, but regardless, the Hammerers were waiting, and they also have the Slayer King over here. So my opponent wisely goes and dives my really weak flank out here. Again, these are just some Dwarf Warriors who are not in the best shape. And, you know, he's going to put some serious pressure on these guys. But the Hammers are going to come down, and Hammers do very, very well against you know, pretty much any Chaos unit, especially Chaos Knights. They have 120 armor, so once these Hammers get on them, you guys will see it's just going to be pretty devastating damage, and you'll see a lot of the models start to go down right away when these guys get in here. So not a bad situation for me. And over here, I have finally reformed my line here. I have my Thunderers here, and they're taking some good pot shots over here at these Chaos Knights. You can see their numbers are starting to go down, and these gyrocopters are also shooting at them, so my opponent does pull his Exalted Hero to chase them off. Definitely a good play. And at the same time, I do have the Stain. He just had a nice jump kick here on this Chaos Sorcerer, and now the Iron Drakes have kind of zeroed in on this guy. So you guys take a look at his HP and just watch him tank as these torpedoes come in. So that's pretty much it. Just 1 or 2 volleys with the Thane on him is enough to send him running off the battlefield. So that was definitely great and good use of the Iron Drakes there. He does pull in this Exalted Hero to save the Sorcerer, but thankfully he was broken, so his buffs and Lore of Fire abilities wouldn't be harassing me for much longer. So the Iron Drakes begin to shoot at the Chaos Lord. They're not making the best contact, but regardless, they still do a little bit of damage, and I can't complain about that. Anytime that you can pressure your opponent's leader is not bad at all. So yeah, is he actually shattered at this point? So yes, the Chaos Sorcerer is now shattered, so that was a very, very good situation for me. So my back line's pretty healthy. I still have a full group of Dwarf Warriors. I've been keeping them auxiliary. You know, it's very tempting to engage them in these areas that you're losing in, but at the end of the day, the really important thing is to protect the Iron Drakes and the Thunderers, because if I had sent them off, his Knights would have just been cycle charging these guys for free. But regardless, it did get to the point where if I didn't send them up, you know, this guy would be in huge trouble. But again, you got to demonstrate that patience, guys, and just hold out. So he does land his Exalted Hero here versus the Thane. This Thane is just putting in work. I had to use the potion, but it allowed the Iron Drakes to just get free shots at him, and now he's shattered too. So you guys can see just a few volleys from these Troll Hammers was able to rout 2 of my opponent's leadership units. So that's some great results here. So unfortunately, the Chosen did break through my front line on basically both of these fronts, and oh man, I always take a moment to admire the Iron Drake fire there, but they do take this Chaos Sorcerer down about 15-20% of his HP, so that's not bad. But unfortunately, he did chase off my Gyrocopters here, which aren't in the best shape. And Ungrim over here is doing pretty good work. This is exactly where you want him, because Chosen are very hard for the Dwarves to deal with. You know, I only brought 1 group of Hammers, so, you know, and they're over there dealing with another group of Chosen. So Ungrim definitely needs to cut through these guys, and you can see his Lord does fly in and take a lot of fire in the face as he does so. So that's definitely problematic for him, and now his Lord is wavering, though it's doing some good damage, but Ungrim has had enough of this business here and comes in and with 1 stroke of the Axe of Dargo, he sends the Chaos Lord fleeing from the battlefield. And thankfully for me, I had these slow Gyrocopters over here who are going to chase him off and make sure he does not come back. So that was a huge buff for my army in general, and my opponent is going to take a leadership hit across the board because it is a relatively close battle if you look at it. He does have this healthy group of Chosen who have essentially killed this Runesmith here. In the center, he has some Chosen left, but Ungrim is still there at about 70% of his HP. And he does have these Cavalry, though, who are cycle charging over here, but the Dwarf Warriors were designed to take those type of charges, and it's nice because they are providing cover to the Thane, as well as these Hammers who are in here fighting. So the Hammers are doing decent against the Chosen, finally starting to get through them, but he does have a nice little surround on me here, which was definitely a little stressful, but what's nice is I have Dwarf Warriors mixed in with Hammers, so a lot of his, high value, attack units are hitting the Dwarf Warriors instead of the Hammers. So it's always nice when you can mix in fodder with elite units, because if you had some Marauders mixed in with the line here, my Hammers would be much less effective, but considering the circumstances, it's a good situation for me. So Ungrim over here is continuing to just get through these guys, and finally he is doing so. But unfortunately, he does get his Chaos Marauders kind of enveloped on these Thunderers, which is pretty good because they were shooting at the Chosen here, which is exactly what you want. So I did have some Dwarf Warriors come back from route, so they're going to tie up these Marauders, and as soon as I'm able to tie them up, I pull the Thunderers back, and you guys can see they're going to come over here, and once they're able to kind of reposture and take some shots at these Chosen, which are, you know, still a huge threat. I mean, they're doing really good damage to this Thane, who's already used his potion. And of course, Ungrim is, you know, he's a trooper, and he won't route, but he's getting pretty low. But thankfully, these Thunderers, they're just waiting for their last lad here to get in, and are going to take some nice shots. So you guys will see this here in a moment. And with that volley, a bunch of the Chosen go down, and they start to flee off the battlefield. And this Thane, with a nice shield bash there, takes that guy, or at least knocks him down. No, it definitely took him out of commission. And that was pretty much it at that point. So very, very close battle. It was a lot of fun, and you guys can see the value of the Trollhammer torpedoes. And Thunderers did pretty well, though my opponent did a good job diving them with the Manticores and was putting a lot of pressure on. But at the end of the day, it really came down to those Trollhammers as well as Ungrim. Those 69 kills he got, most of them were on Chosen. So that is huge value. And also these Hammers did really good. They were fighting Chosen down there and had a pretty even battle. I believe it was this group down here with the 75 kills they were fighting. So Gyrocopters were also quite good. You saw they did some good initial damage to his cavalry and were able to actually chase his Broken Lord off the battlefield. So, and my opponent, in regards to his play and his build here, it was a pretty good build for sure. The Chaos Marauders, you know, didn't do half bad. I mean, they tied up my Dwarves with great weapons and allowed his Chosen to come in, and look how many kills these guys got. It was just huge. And, you know, I think if he had just maybe sent his Exalted Hero, but again, Ungrim was guarding the Trollhammer torpedoes. If he was able to get a little more damage on those Iron Drakes, I think that would have turned the tide of the battle. So it was a very good game to my opponent Carnage here. I hope you guys enjoyed that one, and more content coming soon. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.